What's going on, y'all? It's your boy June Archer here, the Winner's Circle on thisis50.com. My guest today, author, motivational speaker, spiritual teacher, man of God. Welcome, the author of the new book, The Truth About Men. My guest, Devon Franklin. What's up, Devon? How you doing, brother?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Listen, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm excited about this book.
Thank you.
And I was able to read through it, but I want to ask you something which is interesting. You had a book out called The Weight.
Yeah.
I almost feel like the men who are going to read this probably should have read this one first and then read The Weight, but sometimes it's like Star Wars. You start in the
right.
reverse.
It don't matter. It don't matter, you know,
exactly.
As long as you get caught up.
And that's the point. But I think what I want to do is I want to jump into this because you're busy, you're on tour, you're promoting this book, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
We saw you at the Oscars with Megan Good. You're an amazing wife, talented. Sing and pray for everybody. So we're gonna have something special for you afterwards. But
okay.
I wanna talk about this book, and I wanna start with the proverbial dog that you mentioned, which is a theme throughout the book. I wanna talk about the dog, and I wanna talk about the dog versus the vice. For those who haven't read the book yet, who are going to get the book, just give us a little piece about why you cling to this theme of the proverbial dog.
Yeah, you know, because I think for so often there's been that old adage, you know, are men really dogs? And so I use this book to answer the question, to say no, you know, and here's the thing, for us as men, it's all about love, learning to love. And a lot of that starts with learning to love ourselves. Because as men, we don't love ourselves, you know, and because a lot of times we're taught that love makes us weak. So as a result, we never talk about how we feel. We never communicate. We suppress. Anything we suppress, we empower. And so what I wanted to do is say, listen, as men, if we don't learn how to love, we're going to give ourselves over to the enemy of love, which in my opinion is lust. And that's where so many of us as men fail, because we give ourselves over to lust so much, we become what that lust makes us instead of tapping into that love within. And so I use the metaphor of mastering the dog, because I call love the master. I call lust the dog. Because as men, when we don't master the dog, when we don't put love in control of lust, when we don't put selflessness over selfishness, we become the selfishness that lust makes us. Because lust is a selfish impulse for personal, professional, financial, or sexual fulfillment by any means necessary, even if those means are detrimental. And lust, similar to an untrained dog, makes us pleasure-seeking without accountability, undisciplined, not wanting self-control, making a world where we have to be the center of the universe. And if anyone doesn't fit within our universe, we usually get rid of them. So what happens when we are in lust, when we operate based upon the dog within, we can never become the men we were created to be, which is the master. We were created to love. We were created to lead in love. Love is sacrificial. So I wanted to use this metaphor as a way to turn it on its head and for us to really understand how to become the men we want. Because I know that so often as men we struggle. We don't always talk about our struggle because we kind of contain it.
No, we don't.
And I really wanted to write this book to say, here's how we can do it. And also giving women information along the way. Because too often women are in the dark about who we are, our intentions, our thoughts, our feelings. So this book is not a book about what women need to do better. This is a book about what we need to do better as men, but giving women information along the way.
I hope you guys got that, and I hope you're gonna chew on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that dog will come back to bite us if we succumb to these vices that you mentioned.
That is correct. That is correct.
For those who, hopefully people are mature enough to understand what these vices are, but what are the vices, the traps that we fall into when we try to suppress the dog?
Sure, I have a whole chapter called The One You Feed. And what this is that whichever we feed within us is going to be the strongest within us. So if we feed the master will be strong. If we feed the dog will be strong. And so I articulate the different types of food that each one feeds on. So the master feeds on virtue. I call that soul food. The dog feeds on vice. I call that dog food. So vices can be, you know, hanging out with the wrong people, drinking, alcohol, drugs, strip clubs, pornography, all of these things I would put in the vice category.
That we lean on.
That we lean on. And what happens is, as men, you know, the culture basically says the more vice, the better. And what happens is the dog in us is well fed, but the master in us is weak. And when that happens, even the man that wants to be better, if the dog is stronger than the master,
it will defeat him every time.
Every time. Every time. And so it's not about just having an overwhelming feeling where you're like, hey, I can't do anything about it. It's starting to look at, well, how can I feed the master? Virtue, things that are positive, things that are uplifting, things that nurture your spirit, things that give you discipline, things that perfect your mind. Those are the things that feed the master so that that love in us is stronger than that lust in us.
Now, you grew up with this village concept, and I'm a huge supporter of the village, and it takes a village.
Yeah.
For you, you have two brothers. You guys lost your dad at a very young age, and your mom stepped in, and her family stepped in. Her village took you guys in and gave you that love and showed you. And these are women, right? So, not to say that you didn't have male figures, because you had an uncle who happened to be a pastor, and you had male figures around. But this village concept of women that surrounded the three of you, how did that mold you to become the man that you want, or I should say your mother wanted you to become, but still having the desires of a man, as a human, as the flesh that we are?
Sure.
How were you able to balance that and fight that while being taught that and then being out in the world?
Yeah, you know, I mean, being raised by women. You know, when my father passed away when I was 9, and, you know, I'm the middle child of 3 boys. And so what that did is it gave me a front row seat to understand, you know, women's pain. And a lot of times, so much of the pain that the women in my family experienced was because of, at the hands of men. And I don't mean necessarily physical pain, I just mean emotional pain.
Right.
And so what that did was it made me very sensitive, you know, even as a kid, to, hey, you know, I don't want to be that kind of man that's going to just, you know, live on inflicting this kind of pain.
Right.
So what it did was, even though I didn't have you know, a one male figure that I looked to or that my brothers looked to, you know, we did have a figure of strength because we had our mom, our grandmother, you know, our grandfather was there too, as well as my great aunts. And so what that did was it showed, here's another way. Here's another way. So, and I say this a lot, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean you can't become it. And so for me and my brothers, even though we didn't necessarily have a father and we didn't have that central father figure, we still saw what it meant to be of integrity, have character, discipline, self-control. Those things were modeled in our family, and as a result, we still had a foundation of those things even without finding that in one individual. And as a result, what that did was it prepared, you know, us, it prepared me as a young man going into the world and navigating all these issues.
Right.
You know, and they were certainly not easy. They still aren't easy. You know, the battle between love and lust is strong. The battle between the master and the dog wars within all of us. And so I think growing up being exposed to the pain that dog and men can create, I think it made me more sensitive to it.
Right.
But it didn't eradicate it, you know.
That's
and
true.
so I think that's one of the things truths that I put in the book, and why I think it can help both men and women, is because it really helps us understand a lot of the stuff we never talk about. A lot of times we're focused on the public success, especially as men. You know, you got to get the right car, you got to have the right money, you got to have the right position, and all those things. In my opinion,
but we do all these things to get the woman.
Well,
right?
yes.
So that's the driving force.
Yes.
Like, if I have money, if I have the nice car, if I have the nice clothes, the nice shoes, you feel as though those things will attract.
Well, but the reality is that I think inherently all of us as men want to be loved for who we are, not just what we have.
Inherently.
And so inherently. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get all this stuff so I can attract the women, but I think deep down, if that's the goal and that's the objective and you achieve it, I think deep down you wonder, well, why if I didn't have these things, would she be here?
Right.
Does she really like me for me or what I can do? And to me, this is where the tension is for most men, because so often we find our value in doing and not being. And I talk about this in the book, that for us to be the men we were called to be, to really have the peace that we really can have and the strength and the power we can have, and I don't mean power in the world, I mean power of self, power of control of ourselves, then we have to go from doing to being. We have to find our value in who looks back at us in the mirror, and not buy in, because see what the society says that, yeah, the money, the cars, the jewels, all these things, you'll get the women. But what happens is, if you have a hole in your soul, I don't care how many jewels you have, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care how much fame it's not going to fill the hole.
No, those are just devices.
Those become devices that feed
the
dog in us, that feed the lust in us, and that lust grows and becomes so strong. So what I wanted to do is to say, as men, we deal with brokenness, we deal with suppression, we don't talk, we don't communicate, we don't know how to love. I wanted to write this book to say, here's how we do it. Here's how we can actually change the definition of manhood. Let's find our manhood in how we love, how we lead, how we protect, how we provide in an emotional sense, not just a physical sense. Let's find our value there, not in how many women we can dominate.
Right.
Not in how many women we can sleep with. Not in how much sex we have. Because this is the thing I challenge men on. I say, okay, I'm not going to tell you how to live, right? I'm going to share my truth, what I think will work, but I'm not going to tell you how to live. But here's what I ask. Currently, if you do an inventory of your life as a man, for all the women you've slept with, all the money you spent on all the dates, what do you have to show for it?
It's a SWOT analysis, a spiritual SWOT analysis.
There you go.
But I want to talk about being in a place where we grew up in different times. A lot of things that we see on television now and what young men and women have access to is a lot different.
Sure.
And pride and ego for men is something that we battle with, we struggle with.
All the time.
We don't tell each other that we love each other.
Nope.
We're afraid to, because of pride and ego, to say, Devon, I'm having a problem with drinking, or Devon, I lost my job. Devon, I think I had a baby out of wedlock, because we don't want to be transparent and don't want pride and ego, because we feel a certain way that I'm vulnerable now because I've shared this. For you, how do we have those conversations with men our age and with younger men to make them better? Because if they're not in the environment and we allow pride and ego to get in the way, that we are pretty much having another generation of men potentially that will do exactly what we're seeing now with the Me Too movement and treating women other than what they should be treated as.
That's right. Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book, is to help change that. And it all starts with, we can't encourage others to be truthful and transparent if we ourselves are not truthful and transparent. And so in this book, I share a lot of my own truth. I say, listen, I struggle between love and lust. I struggle between the master and the dog too. I have not mastered this. I work on it every day. Right? But part of even getting mastery is to acknowledge, there's some stuff in me I wish wasn't here. There were thoughts, there are feelings, there are ideas that I say, where did this stuff come from? That's not who I want to be. That's not what I want to do, but those thoughts and feelings are here. So it starts with just being honest. And saying, young brother, I understand your struggle, because I struggle too. That's the thing that no man talks about. And you know what? And it's okay, because I think for too long, we have tried to perpetuate a persona and an image. And as a result, none of us are a persona or an image. None of us fit the box. So we all have to just be honest. Hey, here's I am as a person, right? There's a difference between a person and a persona. The persona we try to perfect, and we want people to believe that's who we are, but it's not. The person is who we really are. And I think in order to be transparent and to transform this generation, it starts with each one personally being vulnerable and knowing that vulnerability leads to victory, not the opposite way. And when I'm saying, I don't have this all figured out, and what happens though is I think it builds more empathy for other people. And for me, when you look at a lot of the things that go on in the culture, sometimes there's a rush to judgment. And when we rush to judge, we lack empathy. I'm not saying empathy means co-signing someone's decision that they should not have done. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that as men, being a little more understanding and sensitive and saying, this walk is hard. It's not easy. And not using the fact that it's difficult as an excuse just to do what we want, whenever we want, however we want. We have to become accountable and responsible for our behavior. And so when we, as men, say, hey, we're going to become accountable and responsible, and then we teach accountability and responsibility, then we start to see changes. And one of the biggest areas where we got to change is how we treat our women.
For those who are in a broken relationship, be it infidelity, be it finances, be it not being able to communicate effectively, be it their environment, what is the best takeaway that you could give them so that they dive into this book with the right frame of mind? For whoever out here is listening and watching, what is the best piece of advice that you could give them based on where you've been and where you are going as a man of God and just as...
Sure. I would say for, if you're dealing with in a situation where a man is cheated, I have a whole chapter in there where you can repair the damage. But in order to repair the damage, it requires two things. One, the person you're with, the woman you're with, has to be willing to forgive and be willing to make it work, right? So if you step out in the relationship and she's like, I'm done, then that's going to be a tough situation. But here's the thing that's so key. Two things. One, if you have created the wound in the relationship, you don't get a chance to dictate the terms by which that wound is healed. The one that is bearing the pain and the wound is the one that dictates the terms by which the wound is healed. And that's a really important key, because a lot of times men will step out, they want to get the woman back, and the woman is still hurt, and then they're like, well, why don't you get over it? I apologize. No, can't do that. Because she's still hurting, because the wound hasn't actually healed, because she hasn't rebuilt that trust yet, because maybe you haven't done enough things to do that. Here's another thing. As a man, if you stepped out of a relationship and you want to repair it, it's not just going to get her back as the key. Work on yourself.
Right.
What started in you that led to the cheating to begin with? Because if a man never addresses that, I argue he will become a repeat offender, no matter how willing. That's why I wrote this book.
Because you're just putting a Band-Aid on the situation.
There you go. You're getting her back, but you're still not doing the work that led to the offense in the first place.
And then the vices come back.
There you go. There you go.
And the temptation comes back.
Because temptation ain't going nowhere.
No,
it's right there. It's for a woman in a situation, well, let's say where a guy is cheated. She can be loved and respected at the same time. You don't have to choose between the both. And if you're in a situation, in a relationship, and this has been a pattern, sometimes the only way for your man to change is through experiencing the pain of your absence. And sometimes I think women are hesitant to assert their authority because they're afraid they're going to lose him, and they stay in a situation where they know it's less than their value. And I would encourage any woman after reading this book to live at the level of your value. And don't allow anyone in your life to have you live less than. And if that means you got to take a period of time away from a guy who's not valuing you, do it. Why? Because your well-being, your heart, your wholeness, your health are far more important than staying with somebody who never lets you be who you really were created to be.
The book is out now, The Truth About Men by Devon Franklin. Please pick it up. Share it with somebody that you love. Share it with somebody that you know is going through something, male or female. I promise you it'll be a blessing to them. Where can we find you? Where can we follow you? The tour is still going on?
Yeah, tour is still going on. You can find me on Instagram at Devon Franklin, DEVON Franklin. Same thing on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook at Devon Franklin Official, and my website, devonfranklin.com. And the book is available everywhere books are sold: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, all of it.
Listen. Pick it up. I promise you it'll be great. It's your boy June Archer here, The Winner Circle. Peace.